The American state of Georgia's controversial new abortion law, which bans abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy, is making headlines around the world. It's been called the Heartbeat Bill because the ban is effective as soon as a heartbeat can be detected. It's caused outrage across America. So will this new law set women's rights back by decades? Janet, what do you think?
Well, I find it very, very chilling that we're in the 21st century and women are still not in charge of their own bodies. I mean, the person who has to decide what's right for a woman is a woman. And I can only go back to my own experience as a teenager, because it will be young women that will be the most affected by this. And when I was 16 or 17, I was doing my exams, I think I was doing my A-levels, and I found out that I was pregnant. And I just did not know what to do. And back then, you know, abortions were illegal. They were very, very hard to get. And I remember going up to the West End and asking around in clubs for pills that might end my pregnancy, and taking also a whole cocktail of dodgy drugs, and nothing happened except I was really, really sick.
And was there any adult you could speak to? I mean, anyone that you could confide in at that time?
No, because I had a terrible relationship with my parents anyway, like a lot of teenagers. And I don't think at 16 or 17, you know, I was out going to music clubs, and, you know, I led quite a busy social life. But I wasn't sexually promiscuous. I had just one boyfriend for quite a time. But when this happened, I just did not know what to do. And I kept thinking how stupid of me, because I'd messed my exams up. Anyway, eventually someone helped me out and told me about a backstreet abortionist in North London, and they wanted 25 quid in cash. And I got the money out of my post office account and went up there. And I just remember the walk from the station. I still dream about that walk. I walked along the road, and I went to the house and knocked on the door, and I went to a flat upstairs. And, you know, I don't want to go into detail on daytime telly, but it was obvious I wasn't very old. And this woman told me to get on the kitchen table, and then it happened. And then I had to walk back to the Underground and go home on the Central line. I mean, I'd chosen a day when my parents were away for the weekend. And I remember I told one friend, and she, well, what could she do? I mean, she kind of came round and talked to me, but I spent the next 24 hours sitting on the toilet. And I just thought, yeah, and afterwards I thought, how stupid was I? That, because you blame yourself, but contraception wasn't easy to get then. And then, of course, 2 years later, it happened again, but by then I had a proper abortion in a clinic, and, you know, and it was carried out by doctors. But ever since that day, I have campaigned and thought women have to be in charge of their own bodies, and they have to have access to termination.
Well, it's the thing, isn't it, about, you know, this kind of legislation. And let's not forget, we have this legislation in Northern Ireland, so we don't have to look to America, and there are also other states in America. You can pass this legislation. It isn't going to stop abortion. You know, young women, or whatever age of women, are either going to go to backstreet abortion, as you call them, or in Northern Ireland, we know that people come across to the mainland. You're not going to stop it. So what are you actually doing, apart from making women feel...
in Northern Ireland. I don't know how... I just find it, in the 21st century, how can it be that in Northern Ireland, the only way you can get an abortion is if there's a serious risk of life, a loss of life?
And
that's
in these places, not in Northern Ireland, I don't think about this, but in Georgia, if somebody did, which, like a poor young girl like you were, forced to do that, you could now, they would consider it induced miscarriage, and you could go to prison for 30 years under that law. There are also states in America, this is not negating the Northern Ireland situation, but there are states in America where if somebody is raped, not only can they not get an abortion, they give the rapist parental rights, and that person has to allow that rapist to see the child on a weekly basis in some states.
Well, but listen, we need to consider the other side, don't we? People would say this is pro-child. This is about the rights of the child. How do you respond to that?
I think the, you know, over here, I'm very glad that they have lowered the time frame of being able to have
24 weeks now, isn't it?
It used to be 28, I think. And it's 24 for me. That could be even lower, as far as I'm concerned. So I agree with that, because I think, you know, you should have made a decision long before then, whether you're able...
The vast majority of abortions do take place, I think, before
Within the
12 weeks.
first
In
12
the
weeks.
first 12 weeks.
So I'm with Janet. I think it's a woman's right to decide. And although people say, what about the life of the child? You do take that into you would take that into consideration. And if you can't in any way provide a good life for that child, then...
Absolutely.
You know, you've no right, really.
Yeah, whether you
to
feel
think of that.
emotionally prepared
What got
or
me about the
financially
Northern
prepared.
Ireland laws was this line where it says, fatal fetal abnormalities, rape and incest are not circumstances in which abortions can be performed legally. I mean, who in their right mind would ever come up with that law?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot going on in America as a response to this, the sex ban, etc. We don't have time to get into just now, but we should remember it's closer to home than that.
Yeah.